Alrighty, Lumberjacks, welcome back. And today we are looking at the 1.20 update. Very excited about this one. You guys got some new toys, some new maps, some new tons of features. I have so much stuff to go over in this update, so I'm just going to jump right to it. So let's go over the new stuff first. So there's two new maps, and these are old retro maps. So we have Axe Mountain making a return, and we have Ender's Forest making a return as well. Obviously, there's no demonstration of those in this video. I'll let you guys just go enjoy the greatness. These are old maps that were in Farming Simulator 2019 that have now been converted to FS22. And big thank you to Flirty30, who was the financial guru in paying for the production of those maps to get converted. So big hand of applause for that gentleman. It's very appreciative. And the community loves you for it. And there's more retro maps coming in future updates, but Axe Mountain and Enders made it into this one, so I'm pretty excited about that. Another new toy, the Hitachi ZX260F6. This is a new addition to the high cab lineup, and oh my god, is it a beautiful machine. I absolutely love this machine. Originally, this was supposed to be a John Deere, the new G-Series John Deere, because they use the exact same bodies as the Hitachis. But unfortunately, we know how that news went, where John Deere is not supporting FDR Logging, so we had to nix the John Deere equipment. But that is okay, because there is some future exciting news about some other people that are stepping up in company land to support FDR Logging, and I'll keep you guys tuned on that. So this is the new Hitachi ZX 260. It is a absolute monster of a machine, very large, very beautiful, and it's probably one of I bet it's my favorite machine now. It looks gorgeous. Everything about it just has a beautiful look to it, and honestly, the in-cab view, this is my favorite view in this entire game. I don't know, there's something about this cab. It's just so slick and smooth and uniform, and if you have OCD, everything just lines up nice, very smooth. I don't know, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful cab. I absolutely love it. So hopefully you guys will like it as much as I do. It's got a really good balance, and it's just like I said, with the long arm capacity like the other high cabs, and the view. Oh man, I can just process in this thing or load in this thing for hours. So this is coming out in this update, and you guys are gonna love it. The update is coming out September 29th. So I'm releasing this video probably weeks earlier, just so you guys can see what's coming, because this is like I said, a big video, big update, lots of stuff going on. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to teleport this bad boy down to the mill real quick here, because I want to show you guys where are we here, the new trailers. Okay, so we have two sets of new trailers. So we have the 2-bunk hay rack trailer. So right now in our regular game, prior to this update, you guys had just the 3-bunk hay rack, which is a single long trailer with 3 bunks. This one just has 2 bunks, but they're much wider bunks. So you can fit 2 sets of probably 8s on there, 8-meter logs. You could fit 2 sets of 7s, 6.5. I think 6s are probably the minimal you can fit on this guy, but I'll let you guys experiment and see what'll fit. It is just a different variation, because some people wanted to have one with 2 bunks that fit the longer kind of medium length logs, as opposed to just shorts. So you can use this for longs, you can use it for shorts, whatever you want. The other new thing is, and we're going to hike over here because I have to do this too. Oh, actually, you know what? I'll have to hook the truck up to them anyway. So we now have a single bunk hay rack style trailer. So this is the single bunk, and as you can see, they are stacked up. You're able to stack these on top of one another, similar to the B-Train. So I'm just going to disconnect here. Now, the bonus with this one, and I've had this request for a while from a few people, anybody who's working in a very tight area that's hard to get in and out of with trucks and trailers, this is kind of a problem solving for that. Because now, with this little guy, you can drive this little guy into almost anywhere, because it's such a short trailer setup. Now I'm just going to yank that one trailer off there. Also, you can use your locking straps to hang on to that other trailer once you get it up there. And because I loaded it in weird, it's probably going to fall off. So again, you can offload and load this thing very similar to the B-train style trailer. If you can line your forks up to get it in there. There you go. And again, it just lifts right off the back. And I'm just going to plunk this over here for a minute. Oop. Perfect. So like I said, they do have these little kind of a hook point on the back here for a fifth wheel. So you can hook, I don't know, you guys are going to be creative, but you can hook a big train of these things if you really wanted to for miles and miles and miles. They just keep hooking together. I don't think there's a limit. But they each have this little kind of a little hook, scorpion-looking tail that's off the back. And you can hook them all up kind of in series to each other. So here, I'll see if I can, I'll just kind of swing this over here without falling over in theory. Maybe we'll cheat here just because we're in developer mode. We don't care. So let's just grab this. Normally you do this with the loader, but we're going to do it with our fingers here. So yeah, you can just hook it to the back one. And again, like I said, I don't know how many you could get in a row, but you could definitely hook quite a few of those up, I imagine. And again, it is very fully loadable, just like our B-train trailer. So you can get your forks, hook her on in there like so. Lift it up. Now this one's actually, in my opinion, way easier to load than the B-train, because I think it's just because the stakes aren't as tight to it. So this one loads very similarly to the B-train, where these front tires kind of slide right in between the stakes here. And my machine's parked at a weird angle here, but she's going. And then those stakes just kind of lock right in there. And you can drop it. Bloop. But as you can see, way easier to load than the B-train. You don't have to fight with it as much, which is nice. And then if you hit your locking strap button, bloop, it'll stay locked to that trailer while you take it up the mountain. Yeah, so that's the other one. So there's the 1-bunk and the 2-bunk hay rack log trailers. Those will be a nice little addition. I think people are really going to like these because, like I said, you can, if you want, you can just bring that one single trailer, fill it with like 9-meter logs or something, and just have like a little mini trailer to drag up the mountain, especially if you're in like really weird tight spaces. So okay, so I'm just gonna whip through all the patch notes here because there's a lot of stuff on this list. So map changes, we're gonna start with that. So on Sitka and on this Fox Creek map, all of the very, very large trees have been removed off of the map. Now, because of this issue, if you guys have a save game, there's a strong possibility that your trees may regrow in certain sections. Not all of them, but some of them. So you're going to see, if you have cut areas on this map, if you load the save game, you're going to have those trees coming back in some sections. So I apologize for that, but it's a good overall change that needed to happen, so we made the changes here. So the very, very large trees are gone. So if you look at our map here, we just have kind of these medium size. We still have a few of these big guys, like these big pine are still here, and these kind of bigger looking weird ones here, the large pine, but these ones are still here. The only ones we got rid of were those like ones that were like 3 times the size of those really giant ones. And this is on this map and on Sitka. So Sitka is now one map. There is no Sitka and Sitka big trees. There's just the Sitka no big trees version, but it's just called Sitka. So that might be a little confusing for some people, but there was way too many conflicts with those big trees in the equipment, and I had 5 million emails from people about the buncher can't cut the big trees properly, and they can't load the big trees properly, and the big trees are glitching, and da-da-da-da-da. So I tried to mitigate the issue by playing with the physics, and the big trees just don't act realistically to how you do it in real life, and they just don't work properly. So the big diameter stuff messes with the processor heads, it messes with the grapples. It's just a nightmare. And in real life, there's certain ways to load larger trees, but we're not going to mess with that stuff. It's just not worth the time and the annoyance. So the big trees, the really big trees are gone, but you still got some pretty decent sized ones. And the stuff on like Logger's Paradise, all that's untouched. Those are huge trees, and I think that'll be still good for everybody. So that might be a little bit of a controversial change. Some people are going to hate it, but it's a positive one for everybody. Your logging experience will be better. So that was on Sitka and Fox Creek. No more big trees. No more like really, really big trees. Next up, on Fox Creek, fix some tree groups that had the wrong base weights. Okay, so if you guys were playing Fox Creek, I noticed it right away, like later on playing it, but some people may not have. These pine trees right here, they actually had stock Giants physics. They didn't have the heavy weights. So when you went to bunch these, it was like you were picking up a paper log. It was really, really light. That's been corrected. These are now heavy. Same with the other species of them that had that issue. The other one was the limbs. So I had reports, and I found myself when I was processing these pine trees, what would happen is the limbs would stick out. So you'd cut like a 6-meter log, and the 6-meter log would be there, but then way out here, it'd be an invisible piece of limb sticking out the end of your log, and you couldn't get rid of it, and it was super frustrating. So that's just something to do with the way that the Giants' limbs are on these trees, and I tried to mitigate it again, but couldn't fix it. So I just made them all naked, so they now no longer have any limbs on these trees, which is fine when you're running them. It doesn't really make a big effect on the forest. All you know is you got nice clean trees when you're delimbing and doing that kind of stuff as well. So that's cleaned up. That's on both sets of the pine trees that are on this map. They just don't have any limbs anymore. Oh, the log decks. Okay, so I had people reporting, and I had horrible frame rates on this map. Like, all of a sudden, my frame rate was just absolutely garbage, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. So the problem was these log decks that I had. So as you can see, these they're no longer giant log decks. They're just tiny little ones. Well, it turns out that these models for these logs are extremely high poly when you get a lot of them piled together, which means that the performance of the game goes down into the crapper. So what I did is I ended up taking a lot of these logs out of here. As you can see, there's still a little bit of logs to represent the mill section, but a lot of the logs themselves are gone. So one thing that you're going to notice is some of the piles, like if you're on a save game, you'll notice some of the ground is like out of warp here, so it looks like they're floating. When you load a new save game, or if you start a new map, the ground will be level with everything, but on save games, it just keeps the ground where it is, because that's just part of the engine. So yeah, it's smooth as heck now. Like, everything's 60 frames a second. I do not get any more performance drops, and performance is way more important than seeing a bunch of logs piled up over here. Maybe in the future, if we get lower poly logs, we can make that work, but I just took them down. You still have your same logs in the ground and all that fun stuff, but you guys will immediately feel across this map a smooth performance change across the map, like everywhere. The load-in distance on those logs is shorter as well. As you can see, they kind of disappear a little closer. Before, if you're up in the hill working, you could still see those logs, and it was trying to load them, and that was causing huge frame rate drops for people, and that is now gone. So that should be happy, fun times. Okay, next up, new water textures. I'm actually really excited about this. This actually came from the conversion of the new maps, but we now have this beautiful looking water that actually has a little bit of like, you can see into the water a little bit onto the ground, but as you can see, it's got a beautiful reflective shine. The last stuff that I had was really solid. Like, it was all solid, pixely looking ground or water. So this new water texture lets you see the sticks and all the placeable stuff in the water. Just way better, amazingly better, and that's been applied to every single map. So all the maps now have this sexy new water. All right, perfect. All maps improved, further improved tree physics, higher friction point on the stock trees. Okay, so this is a big one. So we're gonna drag this guy up to our little loading area here. So what I've done is I've improved the, oops, there we go, landing on everything. I've improved the friction of the trees, and what I mean by that is I have improved how the trees react to the ground and how they react to the grapples. So basically what it means is the trees are a little more sticky. They stick to the ground a little bit nicer, and they stick in their piles a little bit nicer. So when you go to drop them, you'll find they stick. You see how they fell like all nice, and they kind of stick to the ground? I had a little bit of that applied to the last update, but oops. Now you can see when you drop them, this is really nice for when you're bunching too, because when you're bunching, you drop your bunch, they actually kind of stick to the ground, and they settle really nice, kind of like how real life trees do, with the friction of the limbs actually interacting with them. But as you can see, like, everything kind of piles nice, and everything sticks together, so you can push it together in a pile, and it actually stays in that pile really nice. So if you're a guy who likes doing decking and piling, you're really going to like this update, because it adds a lot of strength to the logs on the ground. The other thing you'll notice is if you're pushing the logs, you can actually feel a little bit of pushback against the grapple now, because they kind of stick to the ground. So as you can see when I'm pushing, you see how my grapple actually bends a little, like it's got a little bit of give. So when you're shoving the logs up and like butting them, it feels like you're actually getting some back pressure from those logs a little bit, which allows you to kind of push them along like in a really cool way. Overall, the friction is much better. It just settles nicer. Even handling the logs, like when you're lifting them, this is a little bit much here, we don't want to get too crazy. When you're lifting and handling the logs, you'll feel the friction point on the grapples is just feels way better. You'll be able to grab into piles a lot nicer, and it sucks them right up into the grapple, and they stay usually pretty steady. So that's a big change. You guys are going to notice it. It might be a little weird at first when you're first playing with it, but once you get used to it, especially loading trucks, oh my god, you're going to love it. It's almost like real life. Pretty close. Okay, what else we got here? All machines. Slight increase to response speed of all controls in each machine. Smaller machines have a faster response time. So this was brought to me by an operator. So in these larger machines, these high cabs, the response time of the boom and the stick and the grapple and all of this movement is quite a bit slow. Well, not slower, but it's more, there's a little bit more of a delay in real life. So I've added that to this guy. You won't notice a huge difference in these ones, but the smaller machines, so let's go to, I think I have one. Oh yeah, this guy. So the smaller machines, when you're working with smaller equipment, you'll find that the arms move faster in smaller machines. As you can see, they're a lot more responsive. And an operator that I know said, you know what, the smaller machines should have easier movement in the arms and the grapple, and the grapples and the boom, because you're moving a smaller piece of equipment with a smaller hydraulic. So generally they move a little quicker and a little bit more responsive. So people who are buncher operators, you guys are going to like this, because you'll be able to snap that stick out a lot faster if you're doing grabs and stuff. So you'll be able to really smoke in the trees. So yeah, you'll feel a little bit of a control difference, but it's not like the end of the world or anything. It's should be a positive change for everybody. Okay, what do we got here? All machines, rebuilt cab and arm collisions. So on these arms here, we had collisions that were kind of out of sync with each other. So for instance, the boom had, like, the collision walls were too wide or too short. So all I did is I went through every single machine in the game, that FDR ones, and I just redid the boom physics and the stick physics, and it's just, everything's a little more to where it should be, for lack of a better term. Fix the issue with the light. Oh, okay, that's a good one. So on these machines, I'm going to zoom in on this. You see these LED lights on the back of this Tiger Cat? So I didn't know it, but they didn't have a cast shadow or receive shadow. Basically, it's a tick box in the editor that you have to tick off. And they didn't reflect shadow, and they didn't receive shadow. So basically, if you're in a dark area, these lights were like super duper 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 bright. Like, they would just pop out of the machine. And I didn't notice it until I was playing with the skidder. But anyway, now it's fixed. So those no longer make any weird kind of standout looks. That's just a small fix, nothing important. So fix that. Okay, new track stability. Okay, and this is with the weight too. Okay, so all of these track machines have now gone down in weight. I think 25,000 whatever tons, kilograms, whatever the heck they are. I was able to reduce the weight of the machines, but make them more stable, believe it or not. So all of the tracks have new suspension systems. So you're going to find that the tracks are a lot more stable. You're still going to have like the ability to tilt if you're waving your heads around on your off tracks. But as you can see, it sits a lot more stable than it did before. Like the whole machine is very, very stable. And unless you go full boom extension, you can get a little bit of tip, but it's no longer that wavy, real heavy drop feeling. It feels a lot more like a real machine where you do have a lot more stability on the ground. You'll find when you're climbing hills, when you're working on weird terrain, the stability of the machine and the way it climbs are just way, way better, a lot more effective. Next up, so yeah, weight reduction. So I was able to bring the weight down because I was actually able to make these tracks more stable. So while you guys are lifting stuff, even with this guy as an example, are we facing? So we're facing straight on with this wood, and this is heavy stuff here. So even that, like way better stability. As you can see, my tracks barely even move at all until I actually like go way far out. Then you start getting a little bit more tip, but it's a lot more realistic tip. Because in real life, that's kind of what happens is your machine will start to kind of slow drag. In the last update, you could be just a tiny bit out and the whole machine would feel like you were kind of like you're driving on mattresses. It was really floaty. So now these tracks are really, really, really sturdy to the ground and they stay very, very, very solid while you're operating. Same if you're doing things like, you know, if you wanted to do like a jump turn sort of an idea. Oh, oops, actually, let's go a little further off track here. So, for instance, if you're doing a jump turn, it feels a lot more sturdy on the ground. I'm just going to put that down. So then your tracks actually plop down a little bit more realistically. In the last update, because of the way the tracks were, they would bounce. So you'd hit the ground. So like when that track falls, it would actually kind of like bounce your machine like it was like, and that was just the suspension system being a little too crazy. So now, like I said, everything feels a lot more solid to the ground when you're operating. You guys will love it. It's going to be great. Okay. All processors. Okay. So we did an overhaul on the processors. All of the processor heads have been updated. So they are now a lot smoother. They grab a lot better. They swing more realistically while you're operating. It's easier to pick up trees. They don't overpower the trees so much. So it feels like you're actually doing proper grabs. You can run them through better. So the arms actually hang onto the trees a lot better. They don't skip out. And because of that new friction point, when you're processing, let's see here. There we go. When you're processing, I think I'm doing longs here. I was going to do shorts, but that's okay. Your trees stay in your piles a lot nicer too, because they stick to the ground. But you'll find that the heads feel a lot more like real life. I watched a whole bunch of videos while processing and working on the processor heads, and just watched the way that the physics were reacting. And we were a little bit off kilter the way we had it before, but now I feel they're way smoother, way easier to run. And I think you guys will really like them. I can go into more detail on that, but I won't because I could talk about those for hours. So yeah, the run-through's better. You don't get any more hang-ups. Just overall, way better. On a side note, because we have the South Star here, I made it so on the South Star and on the Axis head, they actually tip down a little further. The problem was, so you can see your claws a little bit better now, having them tip down. The problem was they sat about here before, and as you can see my visibility, I can barely see where my claws are grabbing. Like I can just barely see the tips of them. So now it actually drops, or it goes all the way up that high. So now you can actually see where your grab is when you're going in. So like sitting up here, it was so annoying because I couldn't see what I was grabbing. I had to kind of guess. But now with your visibility on those claws, it's really easy to see where your next grab is going to be. I did that fix to the Axis forestry head as well. The dangle Waratah didn't really need it, so it's fixed on these ones. All grapples. So all the grapples have improved their ability to grab a little bit more. This is also, again, due to the new tree physics being a little bit more sticky and a little bit more clingy. You're going to find that when you grab trees, it's a little bit easier to hang on to them. Penciling them, if you're doing drops and stuff, it still works. It's just you'll notice they're a bit stickier, kind of like real life. Not all trees drop amazingly. These are really messed up tops too, so these are a bad example to use. But as you can see, it's hanging onto them really, really well. It's almost like real life where they don't pop and slip out of the grapple like crazy trees. But like I said, you can pick up, smaller pieces now, and it feels a lot better. Where's those trees that I just cut? Same with loading longs. Oh man, I love loading longs now. Everything stays so stable. Oops, let's try to get that. Oh, there we go. So like I said, you can swing them around a lot more aggressively, and it stays really, really stable in the head. And again, that's, like I said, due to that friction and that stability. It just holds everything a lot nicer. So ultimately, you guys are just going to find a much better performance in running the grapples. Okay, blabbing away here. We're almost getting to the end of the list here. The logger map. Oh, the logger Mack truck. So this was a request I saw on Discord and from other people. So this giant visor, as cool as it looks, it was blocking people's view. So the visor's still there, but what I did is I removed the mapping on the inside. So now you can't actually see the visor when you're driving, so it's full view. But from the outside, it's still there. If you look at it from this angle, it kind of like cuts it so it's invisible. So that kind of sucks, but that's just part of life. But ultimately, the view of the truck still looks great from the front and the sides and all that stuff. Just when you're driving, some people had some complaints that they couldn't see. So now the visor is invisible when you're inside the cab. All right, easy peasy. The buncher head is the other big one that we did lots of improvements to. The buncher head was already amazingly good in the last update. I know a lot of people loved it, but we made it even better. So one thing I did is I made it so you have the ability to choose the color on it. This is not a really important thing, but I wanted to do it because ProPack set it up this way. So you now have the ability to set the original color. So if I wanted to make it black, I can also set the outside colors for the like the little claws and stuff. So this will change that accented color at the top, the logo, and the base kind of digger claws. So I mean, you can do whatever combination you really want. I won't judge you based on what colors you choose, but you have the option to do whatever you want. Pink and black, that's the way to go right there. Oh yeah. Ooh baby, look at that. Hot, pretty. But you can change those colors now. Some people requested that, and now you can. So that's a thing. So the cut node's been improved. So we had, although this bunching head is amazing and it was great, I wanted to improve it even more. So now it cuts even better than it did before. I increased the size of the cut node a little bit. So now you'll find when you're grabbing, it's a little bit more buttery when you're grabbing. As you can see, I'm just kind of whipping right through these guys, and I love how the trees fall now on the ground because of that beautiful change to the physics. The trees stick to these piles quite nicely, but ultimately, as you can see, it's quite buttery smooth cutting through, even through these bigger trees. It just feels the way it should feel. It's almost like I've watched a lot of real life buncher videos, and I've had the experience of sitting and cutting in a buncher a couple times, but this is probably about as close as we can get to reality doing it this way. So muchly improved grab, muchly improved everything about this. You'll notice right away that's a lot a lot better on hillsides especially. Improved the primary and secondary grab arms. So these arms actually grab a little bit more stiff than in the previous version, but like in a good way because they actually hang on really, really well. As you can see, they grab those trees and they ain't letting go for any reason. And you can still pile everything nice. So yeah, grab arms are improved. What was the other thing? Oh, the sawdust, right. So on this cut node, I was watching in real life, and in real life, when you go in and they cut a tree, it goes to the right side of the head because that's the way the saw is spinning, so it shoots the sawdust to the right. So Big Al there actually was the one that mentioned it because him and his father have bunchers and run that stuff. So when you go in and push it, you'll notice that it cuts and sprays the sawdust to the right-hand side. Before it was kind of all over the place, but now when you go in for that nice smooth cut, it goes and sprays it off to the side. I also changed the way it marks the ground. So previously you used to be able to take the blade and run it on the ground and it would mark it, but it was really unrealistic and it looked kind of stupid. I didn't like it. So I lowered the size of the muddy mark it makes on the ground, and I also made it so that you had to use the bottom of your head and actually kind of drag it on the ground if you really wanted to muck up the ground. Obviously, we're in nice ground here, or mucked up ground already. So if you want to wipe out these bushes, just grab your head and just run it back and forth on the ground. And you can kind of use those little diggers actually on the back, which is kind of what they're for, where you can dig into the ground and actually kind of like wipe out the dirt, which is pretty sweet. And it still does it when you're going forward. Like if you push it on the ground when you're going in for a grab, it'll still mark the ground. But if you're tilted, your blade's not going to mark the ground up, which, I don't know, I think that's better. You shouldn't be using your saw blade to dig into the ground anyway. Otherwise, you might get a boss somewhere that's going to fire you. So I'm just going to wipe these out real quick because I love bunching. And from what I've heard in the last update, a lot of people love bunching. I love you can just drive through everything. That's how buttery smooth this buncher operates now, is that you can just, like there's 2 trees there. You can just push your head right through them, grab them both. No problem. Cleaned it up. And then just pile it all in a big pile. Bunching, like I said, has greatly improved with that new physics update from the previous update, but now it's really good. Okay, 2 more. That's it. And then I'm going to move on to the next thing, because if not, I'll just bunch all day. And we don't want that. Okay. And they all pile so nicely. Oh, okay. Beautiful. Okay, what else we got? South Star we talked about. Timber Pro. Oh, the Timber Pro. I forgot all about the Timber Pro. Okay, we got to go buy one. Hold on. Timber Pro. There you are. So the Timber Pro has had a few things that have happened to it. This is pretty exciting. So the Timber Pro now has, if I can find it, here we go. It now has a movable center bunk. So what I did is that there was that little kind of a chunk of the middle bunk that was left here. There's something really tall there. So I removed this whole section that was kind of a half a bunk stuck there. So there's a big hole there now, which is great when you're going to grab stuff. It's really easy to get stuff. But if you want to adjust it, the same button that is your secondary claw, basically the same button that opens and closes your secondary claws on your buncher, it now moves this bunk in the middle. You can slide it forward so it's right up to this one, or you can slide it all the way back till it hits up against that back plate right here. Dink. Or you can leave it in the middle, but this allows you to kind of change your settings for how you want to do it, because some people like to have less space and some people like to have more space on that bunk. So me personally, I like to have it a little bit further back, but maybe you're the kind of person that wants to do a different type and you want it closer or further, or maybe you want to bring that right up to the front and do a different size log altogether. Maybe you're doing longer logs or shorter. It gives you lots of possibilities for movement, but you guys can explore. So that's a neat little feature added to that. The claw has been, it's smaller, not by a lot, but it's a little bit tinier. The tongs were just a little bit long for this trailer. So I found from lots of people watching them operate that it was just, they were a little bit more finicky. So this one, being a tiny bit smaller of a claw, you can really get more accurate with your swings and be a little bit more surgical when you're working in and around the bunk. As you can see, there's lots of room now to swing. Now, don't let the lack of size fool you, because honestly, it still picks up even better. I played with the nodes a little bit on this guy, so it grabs a lot more efficiently, and you're still able to pencil and do all that fun stuff with it. So, yeah, hopefully you guys will like that. I also made it so that this grapple is a little bit more frictiony on the ground. Before, when you went to grab into a pile, it would like slip off to the sides kind of like that really easily. Now you'll find when you go in to grab a wood pile, see how it kind of sticks to the ground? It just makes it way easier when you're doing grabs, so that your claw isn't like dancing back and forth while you're closing your claws. All right, okay, well, that's all I got. I know this has been a long video and there's been a lot of changes, but this is really good stuff. It's going to be coming out September 29th. As always, I'm always messing with this stuff and playing with it, so there might be some changes even, coming up to the release date that happened. But this is the majority of the big changes and the new stuff that's coming in, and I think you guys are gonna love it. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoy it. If you have any questions or comments, leave them. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments below. If not, we'll catch you guys on the next one. See ya.